I'm just going to start. Okay, thank you. Okay, I've started that now.
All right. I would like to see my script. Please remove this. um, please remove the screen sharing. Okay, thank you so much. I would like to welcome all of you to this interesting webinar. Today, I'm given the task to introduce our esteemed speaker. At the age of 8, he met a traumatic accident that broke his head, was in a coma for 2 weeks, given a 30% chance of not becoming a cabbage. His mother was told that he will be on a wheelchair at 30. He underwent multiple operations between the age of 14 to 30. On top of that, he had anger management, deep psychological challenges. Given the situation, he did not allow those challenges to defeat him. Through self study, he made progress in the field of human psychology, quantum physics, binary code, which is fundamental to the brain function and decision making. The trauma that he underwent, the challenges that best gave him an inspiration to write a book, which is now the basis of this webinar. He completed his doctorate in energy based physical sciences at Oxford University, his undergraduate at Newcastle University. He is Vice Director of UK School of Transformational Leadership and Success Management. He is also co founder of a company that produces nano capacitors. He's a Reiki master teacher. On a personal level, he is a supportive and loving husband. With my new accomplishments, I primarily give him the credit. And of course, credit also to my family and friends for their support and encouragement. Without further ado, I'm proud to introduce to you my loving and intelligent husband, the author of A Theory of Everything, Things I Wished I've Known at Your Age, also called The Manual for Life. Our speaker for today, let's warmly welcome Dr. Jonathan Robin Topp.
Thank you for that, Angela. I appreciate the very ingratiating introduction from my wonderful and beautiful wife.
We would like to acknowledge as well, I hope Julia is here. She's not here. All right. Julia is John's childhood friend, and she's now a friend of mine as well. And she's been helping me with my social media management, my logos, my everything. Julia Edwards, we would like to thank her for a constant source of relevant references surrounding the ultimate truths of life.
Yeah, and I have so many people I want to thank for everything I've achieved and looked at throughout my life. That my acknowledgement page in my book is about 6 pages long. But more importantly, I'd like to acknowledge Angela. Angela lectures in transformational leadership and success management and is the director of the UK School of Transformational Leadership and Success Management. So I just wanted to run you through what to expect from this session. I imagine it'll probably be sort of an hour to an hour and a half. What I wanted to do immediately was to go around the room and just introduce ourselves to each other as a more sort of informal session, and I'll talk a bit more about that on the next slide. But the crux of what I want to talk about is in 2 parts, and the first part is the causes for anxieties, for fears, for blockages, and for the behavior that you display. The first thing I want to introduce is what I see as a fundamental flaw in human psychology, which is absolutely key to, I believe, many mental health issues that all human beings experience throughout life. I'm going to start to explain how that comes into play and how it works with our subconscious, using the examples of the usual brainwave states that we experience at various stages of our lives, and really to point out how fundamentally important the stage of your life between when you're in the womb and up to about 2 years old is. I'll then just give you a brief introduction on one of the reasons that I had the inclination and determination to study and research and practice everything I've written about in my book. I have a confession, which I'll get out of the way. And I'll then wrap that up with my conclusions and an introduction to the solutions. We'll then move on to the solutions, and I'll show you how the subconscious interacts with the conscious and where you can begin to influence your thought patterns, how you can begin to change your thoughts and remove the negative from your thoughts. I'll then take you through several really simple energy thought techniques which can begin to help you to address your anxieties, fears, and blockages in real time. I'll end with some more in-depth techniques, which are meditative visual techniques for really getting into the deep traumas, the deep core blockages that you've experienced, which are essentially memories that you've or traumas that you've experienced at certain periods in your life. Before we go into the introductions, I just wanted to give you an idea of what you can expect if you practice the techniques presented. Now, there are many different ways of dealing with blockages. You know, I've spent a long time studying all of the various techniques that are available. So you could use tapping. I don't know if anyone's come across tapping before. Or, for example, binaural beats, which is left brain, right brain activation. But these are really, and I've written about all of those in my book, because really it's a personal thing, and it's what works best for yourself, what resonates best with yourself. And what I'm presenting to you today is what I've developed as being the best and most simple techniques that I've found to be extremely powerful since about 5 or 6 years ago that I started practicing them. So again, if you practice the techniques, then you can experience reduced anxiety and fear, leading to increased happiness and confidence. You can experience harmonization of thought and clearer, more positive decision making. Now, decision making is one of the primary responsibilities of your mind, and we do it on a split-second basis. It's an extremely important part of your life, and if you can change those decisions through conscious thought to positive decisions, you then begin to display the positive behavior that you see yourself as in your conscious. You can expect improved relationships with people and indeed everything that comes into your life. Now, primarily, we're going to be looking at previous traumas, primarily from childhood, but life throws stuff at you all the time, you know, so it's very difficult to be extremely positive all the time and to attract positive into your life all the time. So what these methods and techniques will give you is a better ability to deal with what life throws at you in real time with greater confidence and ease, and all leading to attraction of more positive into your life. At this point, I'd say I'd recommend that you set your intentions for this webinar at this stage. So what you want to get from this webinar, setting your intentions is a very powerful way to go into something in order that you can generate what you wish throughout the course of it. I'd ask you to get a pen and paper, and I'd ask you to make a list of 2 or 3 things, triggers that cause you anxiety or stress or concern. And we know the difference because our body gives us a tangible response. If it makes you feel bad, then it's likely to be coming from a negative memory that no longer serves you. So if you make a list of 2 or 3 things, later on, once I've gone through the simple mind techniques, I'm going to ask you to choose one of them, and we're going to practice it and see how it makes you feel. So please do take notes, and please do have a look at, particularly surrounding the simple mind techniques, and see which one resonates with you best and which one you want to practice at that time. Lastly, before we get on to the introductions, please feel free to jump in with any questions at any point. If you need clarification, there's nothing worse than sitting through an entire lecture or something if you've not understood something fundamentally at the beginning. And chances are, if you haven't understood it, there's no such thing as a stupid question. Chances are I haven't actually explained it properly to you. So we'll go on to the introduction. I think what I'll do is I'll just invite you to introduce yourself as I see you on my screen. And you can say as little or as much as you want, but at least who you are and where you're from. If you want to talk a bit about, where you are on your spiritual path and why you chose to join the seminar, and even make your intention clear to the group as to what you wish to get from it, that would be great. So I've got Tina up first. Tina, if you want to introduce yourself. Clearly we don't want war and peace, but please do introduce yourself. Thank you. Tina.
Yes, hello everyone. My name is Tina Hewerman and I'm from Des Moines, Iowa. I'm a mindset, business, and health advocate for people that I get to work with. And I deal in the health and wellness industry, where I'm also a coach. I think the attention that I want to address today is ever since one of our sons passed away, there's been a distance between my other son and the family. And I would like to clear that.
Perfect. Thank you, Tina. We will do our best with that. Next up, on my screen, I've got Abda. Abda, do you want to introduce yourself? Say where you're from.
Hello, everyone. My name is Abdul Rahman. I'm from UK, so based in Leighton Buzzard. I've known John for the last almost a year now. And I was very excited for this webinar. I think the reason I came mainly is because John has a personal experience going through, the personal accident he had and everything. So I wanted to learn those techniques. I've got his book already, but webinar is much easier. So, you could sort of summarize the whole thing. And so my biggest thing that I think I'm struggling with is consistency. I've been setting goals and sometimes it just goes months and months and years. You know what you need to do and you do it for a few weeks and then you just somehow get distracted. There may be triggers, frustrations about your past losses, your memories keeps coming back and sort of keep going in circles. So something along those lines is something I would like to understand. Yeah, I am.
No, thanks, Abdul. Thanks very much indeed. Terry, are you in a good position you seem to be shifting your position. Are you in a good position?
It's more that I'm shifting the my mobile rather than my position. Anyway, my name's Terry Marsh. I'm from the UK. I'm currently based in Hitchin in North Hertfordshire, and I'm currently in the process of getting together my ideas to start a new business. In the past, I've worked for a very long time on contract with large corporates. I've also worked as a supply teacher and visiting lecturer. Yes, I'm looking now at ways in which I can enable better communication with SMEs, small to medium-sized businesses, and possibly bringing in music into that, because that's another thread that I've got in my history. So there we go.
Wow,
Excellent.
thank you, Terry. That's an extremely important part of your journey, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. No, thank you for that, Terry. Dawn, do you want to introduce yourself? You're on mute at the moment, Dawn.
There you go. That's better. So I'm Dawn. I'm from Liverpool in the UK. Currently, I live just outside of Bristol. I'm an instructional officer with the prison service, but also a spiritual medium for the last 30 years. So I have actually been through major traumas in my life, and all of their anxieties and fears and all that kind of stuff. I've actually gone through all of that and come out the other side. But for me, you can never stop learning from many, many different sources. So if I've got a technique, so I share my techniques with my prisoners and with my clients on the spiritual side. But if I can gain more techniques and more ways of learning, because not every technique suits all. So if I can gain more details about that's why I'm here. So yeah, looking forward to it.
No, brilliant. Thanks, Dawn. And yeah, not every technique suits everybody, and it's really what resonates with the person most.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think that's why I've tried to capture everything in my book, so that I can present everything, so that people can make up their own minds on what they choose, what resonates with them the best. Thank you, Dawn.
No problem. Thank you.
Iliad, do you want to introduce
Absolutely.
yourself?
Yeah, you can hear me?
Yes. Can we see
That's
you?
good. That's good. Yeah, I can't see myself, so I was wondering if you could see me. So my name is Iliad Dragon, and I was born in Italy, and I lived in the United States for the last 40 years. I am currently in aviation, and I've been in aviation for the last 40 years in different capacities, leadership, technology, as well as business. I have a business degree as well as a applied science degree. And I started my career basically in maintenance technology. My passion is people and leadership. And I'm currently also teaching at a university in an aviation department. I teach human factors and aviation maintenance management. That's been my wheelhouse for several years. Where am I in my spiritual journey? Well, my spiritual journey brought me to a personal relationship with Jesus, and I study the Bible quite well, and I filter a lot of things through what the Bible teaches. What am I looking forward to gain out of this seminar? Primarily, I was invited by Mary, a longtime friend, and I've done a few seminars and webinars with her. As a matter of fact, we both went through the same certification process at John Maxwell. I think it was 2015, and I'm hoping to hear what John has written, his thoughts, and I'm hoping to hear new techniques and understand where his heart is at. That's my story.
Great. Thank you, Iliad. Just to avoid any confusion, and Angela's Mary Angela. So you're referring to Angela.
Correct.
Yeah. Thanks, Iliad. Appreciate it. Caro Pike sends her apologies. She's actually not feeling very well at the moment, so she actually can't talk. She has laryngitis, I believe. So hi, Caro. We're all sending our love to you for your recovery. Amy, would you like to introduce yourself maybe show yourself on screen. I'm not sure if, Amy, if you're having difficulties with your setup, we'll come back to you. We'll come
John,
back.
I think she did send a message saying a camera and mic won't turn on.
Oh, Julia is
but-
here.
Yeah, Julius. So Amy, I do beg your pardon. I missed that message, and thank you for joining us. And if you're able to switch on at any point, then we look forward to seeing you in person, hearing you. Kevin, if you'd like to introduce yourself. I think Kevin may also be described having challenges with internet. So I believe if we're okay to pass on Amy and Kevin at this time, I believe our remaining guest is Julia Edwards herself, who we've already introduced at the beginning of this session. So Julia, welcome to the session, and please just briefly introduce yourself.
Can you hear me? I'm not quite sure if my...
Yes,
Yes.
loud and clear.
Okay.
Yeah.
Hi. Good afternoon, everyone. Yeah, well, I've known John since I was about 16, and I've always been questioning life, what it's all about, why we're here, what our purpose is, what we're meant to be doing. And that's I suppose why we're all here today. We're all sort of trying to find out what it's all about. And I like to share what I discover, and I've been sharing a lot of my findings with John over the years. So anyway, that's me. I'm not very good at public speaking, so I'll keep it short and brief.
No, thank you, Julia. That was perfect. And yeah, again, just to reiterate, massive thanks to you for over the years for all of the input you've had and the questions that you've raised and the research that you've inspired me to do. So thank you. Right. Okay. So let's move on. Can you see my screen? Because I'm not sure. Can you all see my the introduction screen? And if I move to the cause, can you see that screen?
Yep.
Okay, great, thanks. So yeah, what are the fundamental flaw in human psychology is a hangover from something which is very valuable when you are a child. In brief, and this is the classic iceberg model, your conscious consumes about 10% of your thoughts, your subconscious considerably more at approximately 90%. Your conscious is in the present and it's sensory. So hearing, touch, sight, sound, you know, it's entirely limited by the fact that it's also unable to determine by itself how to behave or how to respond to a situation that arises. Now, your subconscious is essentially a memory database. It's where you store your core beliefs, your values, your emotions, and your habits. Now, when your conscious is presented with something in the now, it will consult with your subconscious on how to believe, how to think, and subsequently how to behave, what actions to take. Now, the fundamental flaw is that when your conscious requests information from your subconscious, by default, your subconscious will always provide your conscious with the most negative trauma or memory in order to protect you from an environment that has inevitably changed. So when you're a toddler or even pre-toddler and you go near a naked flame and you burn your fingers, your subconscious absorbs a traumatic memory that will then protect you subsequently from burning your fingers in the future, so that when you next go near that naked flame, you know, run away, hurt, pain. The challenge is that any negative emotion or memory that you store in your subconscious will remain there until you're able to work to remove it, and it will always be brought up by your conscious, because your subconscious is completely blind to the present situation. It has no idea what's actually going on in your current environment. Does that make sense, everyone?
Yes, it was good
Yes.
explanation.
Yeah.
No, great. Okay, so what I wanted to do was just fairly quickly go through in terms of the brainwave states that we predominantly experience at certain ages in our life, and why and how we absorb those negative memories and at what stage. And the most significant stage of your life for anybody in any environment is the age of between when you are first formed in the womb to about the age of 2. And this is referred to as delta brainwave state. Now, at this period, you are absorbing information like a sponge. You know, everything that you experience in your environment at that age is almost blueprinted into your core belief structure. And it's not only negative stuff, it's positive stuff too. But for example, if your mother and father have a heated argument, even when you're in the womb, you will absorb that negative into your psychology. Conversely, if your mother and father have a loving experience, they go out for a meal, they exchange loving information together, you will absorb that too. If something happens in your environment that is traumatic, you will absorb that into your deep subconscious. So that's the most critical stage when you're susceptible to storing those negative memories. So between the age of around 2 to 6, you go into what's called theta brainwave state. The frequencies I've mentioned here, 4 to 8 cycles per second in this case, that's hertz. So hertz is 4 to 8 hertz is cycles per second. In theta, you're still absorbing information, but not quite at the same rate, well, not nearly the same rate that you were in delta. And similarly for alpha, between the ages of about 5 to 10, you're still susceptible to absorbing information, but not at the same rate as before in theta, and certainly not delta. Now, it's when we get to about the age of 10, although your brain is still developing until the age of about 22, at the age of about 10, you move into predominantly beta brainwave state, which is the state which most human adults will experience throughout most of their working day or waking day, shall I say. And that's it. Once you get to about the age of 10, it's almost locked down, Fort Knox. You know, your core belief structure has been fully formed, and it's very difficult to access or change without conscious intervention to change anything that is perceived as being negative. Does that all make sense? Okay, I can see Julia nodding. Okay, so to give you an idea of how that fits into your normal adult life, here's beta, which is again, as I said, normal waking state and where you generally tend to reside. That's the normal state. Above that is gamma, which is transcendental mental states during meditation. And also, Joe Dispenza suggests it's when you activate your pineal gland, which is a whole nother topic. Alpha is generally associated with meditation. It's also, interestingly, the state in which energy healing is said to be performed, particularly, for example, Reiki. Theta is generally associated with light sleeping, REM sleep, but also associated with another level of energy healing. So there is a strain of energy healing called theta healing, which is referring to this brainwave state. And then there's delta. And now delta is a very, very powerful brainwave state, which we all experience during deep, dreamless sleep. And just one of the reasons that sleep and good sleep is so very important for us. So, my confession, what gave me the determination and inclination to write my book and do the research I did? Well, primarily this little guy here. This is Alex, my youngest son. That's his brother William. Now, I think if I'm honest, I probably wrote my book primarily for Alex. You see, when Alex was at that critical stage, between the age of up to the age of 2, I acutely remember and was conscious of being very angry with him and shouting at him. And I have no excuses, but at the time I realized, or was beginning to realize, just how significant that might have been in terms of his development. So I realized that I couldn't beat myself. There was no point beating myself up for it. What was done was done. All I could do was to attempt to work out how I could help him if I had negatively affected him at that stage. So I'm extremely grateful to that opportunity. So let's just have a look at what we've just been through. If you want to change the way you're feeling or behaving, the one way of doing it is to simply become aware of your negative thoughts as they're being evoked by your conscious triggers and brought up by the subconscious, and to remove those negative thoughts at that point in order to enable you to indulge in that particular situation with clarity and in a positive light. Now, this is something which has been described as monkey chatter or monkey mind, for example. It's a process I called silence of the monkeys or monkey hunt. No monkeys were actually hurt in the process. And this is a very common phenomenon. There have been a number of really good books which have been written on this, and I've referenced all of them in my book. For example, The Chimp Paradox by Professor Steve Peters. That I can absolutely understand how so many people have gained very positive results from that. Now, I say simple, but of course it is actually quite challenging. And the most challenging element of it is being able to recognize when you're evoking those negative memories. And one of the most tangible ways of being able to do that is simply by observing how you feel. So when you have a trigger and you can feel that there's you can feel the negative that it's evoking in you, that is the point at which you have the ability to remove those negative in order to change the way you view the situation. By removing the negative, or the negative memories, you don't remove the situation or the problem. Not at all. All you're doing is removing the negative bias that your subconscious holds in order that you can clarify your thought and make more positive the actions that you subsequently take. I think one of the challenges that we experience, particularly in Western societies, that society programs us to be negative. It doesn't mean to, absolutely, but it fills us with fear, hatred, prejudice, and anger, which is utterly unconducive to a healthy and happy life and a positively functioning mind. So using these techniques, you can remove those fears or belief structures in order to, again, clarify your thought. Also, particularly in the West, again, we tend to be raised in unconsciously negative environments, by which I mean your parents don't intend to not be able to give you enough time or not be able to provide for you, or not, your parents are invariably doing their best to bring you up the best way they can. But the societies in which we live in, even as we reside in the womb, produce these unnecessary memories, unnecessary blockages, which can be challenging to address and take time to work on and to fully clear. So, in conclusion, what I concluded was that stress is by far one of the biggest killers in life. And what I've learned is that you have a choice. You can choose whether to get angry or whether not to get angry. You can choose to let the things stress you or not. And what I'm about to present in terms of the solutions will aim to address how you can make those choices in a more positive sense. So, any questions at this stage?
I just thought it was important to mention that apparently 80% of hospital admissions are due to stress-related disorders.
Thank you, Julia. And it doesn't surprise me that you have those statistics at your fingertips. No, thank you. Right, okay, if there's no further questions, I'm going to have a look here at how the conscious interacts with the subconscious. This may look like a bit of a complex diagram, but essentially what you're looking at, here is the conscious, and the conscious is, as I said, it's visual, sensory, and it's in the present, it's in the right now. Your subconscious down here is completely blind and relies on past experience in order to function. So what happens is you get a trigger which will evoke a thought, and your conscious will request information from your subconscious on how to behave. So your subconscious by default will provide the most negative memory in order to protect you from an environment that is inevitably changed. So the standard human psychology is to follow this path here. So trigger, thought, request for information, negative memory, negative interpretation, negative behavior. But here is where it gets a little more complicated, because the more you go around this loop, the more you build further and further negative thoughts based on the assessment of of information that provides you with a forward projected situation in a negative sense that may not ever happen and probably won't even happen. But the more you go round this loop, the more you build up those negative layers, layer upon layer, which you then need to remove systematically using this process. The crux is that this point here is where you can begin to work with your negative memories, and you can begin to remove those memories. So instead of going round this loop, you can remove the negative memory at this point and change your thought to a positive interpretation and to subsequently positive behavior. And so the first step is to be consciously aware of your thoughts and observe your thoughts as they go along. And as I said, the easiest way, as I'm sure you'll appreciate, is just monitoring how you're feeling in your body. And if you feel negative, you can feel it, and you know that you're probably at this point here when it first comes up. And that's the most tricky step, is to catch yourself as you indulge in those negative memories and to deal with them in real time. But once you master this, and with practice, you will soon begin to observe the magical transformations that it will provide for you in every element of your life. So I don't know if you can read, or just a quote that I came across when I was putting this presentation together. When you can't control what's happening, challenge yourself to control the way you respond to what's happening. That's where your power is. Rather akin to the serenity prayer, which I'm very fond of. Now, can I ask, can everybody read this text, or do you want me to read through it?
It's kind of small for me, but I have bad eyes.
No, small for me too.
I can't
Right,
read
okay.
anything at all on that.
Right, okay, so let me read through it. This is essentially an expanded version of this. Could you read this one?
Yes.
Just
Right,
about.
okay.
Yeah, it's a little bit
Okay.
low res.
Yes, yeah, I apologize for that. I need to clean it up for future. Essentially, this structure here is exactly the same, with just an expanded example of how we build up layer upon layer of negative thought, negative belief, which compounds the situation. So this is an example where you've had an argument with your partner or a friend. So the trigger is you've had an argument, and the thought is, well, I'm sad, or I'm confused, or I'm angry. Your conscious will request information from your subconscious, and it is at this point where you can influence that subconscious. But as I said, the normal human psychology pattern is trigger, thought, request for information, negative memory, negative interpretation, which will go a bit like, well, I'm sad, what if they hate me now? Well, I'm confused, what if they never understand me? Well, I'm angry, what if I've made a mistake? Or what if they're using me? Or what if they're lying to me? Or what if they've gossiped with their friends? Or what if, well, so I'm sure you can probably relate to experiencing that kind of emotional and thought turmoil. But if you look at that example, and I don't know if anybody's got any examples they want to share with anyone at this point.
Hey, John.
Hey, lad.
I just have a question, perhaps not an example, but being that in the subconscious mind, your belief and your memory are there as a filter how you're interpreting what is happening. Do you think that there is a possibility of basically redefining your belief to control that memory? Or is it just you're focusing on how you respond to it instead of perhaps reframing that memory with a good belief system?
No, absolutely, Elliot. That's a really good point. And what you're doing is you're removing the negative memories that you have, and ideally, what you would do is you would then replace them with positive memories, which is exactly what I'm getting onto. So thank you for that. And in fact, does that answer your question?
It does. And the reason why I was asking that question, because just a few days ago, I wrote a piece on strongholds of the mind.
Yeah.
And so very similar to the belief filter there. So yeah, it does.
So you absolutely preempt my next point, which is how do we change our negative memories into positive beliefs? So how do we change that belief system? And one of the ways of doing it is, and this is a Joe Vitale example, which is using the what if up principle. So when you get to this point and you're about to think, well, what if they're lying to me? You simply change your thought to, well, what if they're being honest with me? What if, or for example, your situation is you're looking outside the day before an event and you're thinking, oh, what if the weather's going to be really bad tomorrow for my event and it's going to be rubbish? Well, try just thinking to yourself, well, what if the weather cheers up and it's going to be a beautiful day? Or what if whatever the weather does, it's going to be an amazing experience for me? And by doing that, you can then begin to replace these negative memories, these negative beliefs, as you go along with that small example of the mind technique which I presented. Does anyone have any further questions?
I just wanted to say I can vouch for this because this is exactly what happened to me this summer. I was holding sound baths in a local venue, and then I realised on a hot sunny day all the kids were coming out into the skate park right outside the window of the venue. So I had to find a new venue, and I was holding it in the marquee in the garden at home. And the weather this summer was a bit hit and miss. It was a bit wet and soggy for most of the British summer that we had this year. But despite of that, I held faith, and I was thinking, please, 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 can we have some wonderful weather? And without fail, every time I held my event, the weather was beautiful. And then the very next day, it was really lousy and it was raining and howling gale. So I just found it was really quite, it was not just a coincidence because it happened every time that I did it all summer. And then the very next day, the weather was terrible. So there is actually a lot of truth in this because I've lived it. So I just wanted to give my personal first-hand feedback on that.
Thank you very much for that, Julia. And it's incredible how powerful the mind is in ways that you couldn't possibly imagine were possible.
And something else that I was thinking that might have some kind of influence, because if you're doing something that is in alignment with the highest and greatest good that's going to benefit other people, not just for personal gain. Obviously, my personal gain was getting experience in a field that I'm now moving into, but my motivation was that I wanted to not just learn and get experience, I wanted to help other people to have a positive experience and to help with their own healing journey. So I think if you kind of try and focus on, the highest and greatest good, and there's a higher purpose than your own personal gain, I think that also has some bearing.
No, fantastic. Thank you, Julia. And again, it alludes to why I suggested we set our intentions before we embarked upon this journey this afternoon, this morning, this evening, whichever it is. No,
Can I
thank
just
you.
add something to that, John?
Yes, please do, Dawn.
So I work on this kind of like technique an awful lot with the prisoners that I work with. And their questions, what if, la 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 la, what happens when I get out? And, what if I can't get a job? And what if this? And I just go, do you know what? Just stop. Can you control what's going to happen in the future? And they go, no. And I'm like, so why are you thinking about the future rather than thinking about today, the present, and what you can control rather than what you can't control?
Absolutely.
Focus on the here and now, not what ifs. And it kind of like it brings them straight kind of like to the present. And they're shocked because that was their go-to thing. Think about the future. What am I going to do? How am I going to cope? Am I going to have housing? How am I going to, all of those questions and worries and concerns and
Yeah.
all that. And I just say to them, for now, you are here. You are in prison. You have a roof over your head. You have heating. You have food. You have clothing. Anything else out of your control is not for your control. You have to let it go from your mind. And you do see like an awakening in them to go, actually, you're right. It's habitual behaviors, isn't it?
Yeah.
Habitual ways
Yeah.
of thinking.
Yeah. No, brilliant. Thank you, Dawn. Have you come across the Serenity Prayer?
No,
I
probably have, but
Yeah,
by
you
different.
probably have at some point. But if you ever look up the Serenity Prayer, you may find that useful because it concisely describes exactly what you've just. I mean, essentially, to learn to accept the things you cannot change, but have the courage to change the things you can.
Oh no, I've heard of that saying. I normally
Yeah.
go with a favorite of mine, Padre Pio. So I was raised Catholic,
Yeah,
don't believe in religions, but Padre Pio said it all. A saying was, worry. Why worry? It's useless. And when I
yeah,
read that, because I was a worrier, what if, what if, what if?
yeah,
And I read it and I was like, good God, it's absolutely right. I'm worrying, can I pay my mortgage? Well, yes, of course I can, because I
yeah,
always have done
yeah, yeah,
at the end of
yeah,
the month. So why
yeah,
am I torturing myself all the way through the month over something that will get paid?
yeah.
And I literally stopped worrying about the future in that one sentence. So yeah, it's incredible.
So in my conscious, when I was 16, I wrote the words, worrying merely impairs your ability to maximize the impact you have on situations in hand. Chill out. And it took me to the age of about 40 before I actually got it.
Yeah. It's with age comes wisdom sometimes.
I'd like to think so.
You know.
Does anyone else have any questions at this point?
All good, thanks.
Good. So I'm going to start looking at some simple techniques that you can apply in the immediate situation. Now, one way to dispel negative thought, and none of these I've created myself. These are an accumulation of ideas that or methods that I've come across and have practiced and have found to work. So one way is to, when you have a negative thought, to simply hold it in your mind and not pay any attention to it, not allow them to evoke any further negative thoughts, but just be conscious that they're there. And to acknowledge them, to accept them and to allow them. And even, if you like, to love them, to send them love. And like an annoying little sibling, if you don't pay them any attention, they go away. and it's very simple, and that's kind of how I explained it to my sons in my book. So yeah, that's one of the first techniques. So again, when you feel something building inside of you that is causing a negative, tangible negative experience, then you can just hold that thought in your mind and accept it and allow it. And that way you can let that pass. And that is actually one of the ways you can remove the negative blockage, the negative memory. And once it's gone, it's gone. It can't come back from the past. It can only be re-evoked in the future. But you'll be in a significantly better position to deal with it if it were to come back in the future through something tangible happening in real time. So the second technique, which is really, really simple, which I was taught by a friend of mine, Chris New, is to simply repeat the mantra, I love you, I love you, I love you. The very words themselves, you can use beautiful as well, the word beautiful, the vibrational frequency that it provides in your mind, even if you only think it, because thoughts are real and tangible things, provide sufficient healing in your mental system in order to immediately dissolve those negative belief systems or those negative memories. So, as I said, if something is evoked in you and you start to boil, you start to panic, you start to worry, then again hold that thought in your mind and just say it to yourself, I love you, I love you, I love you. Funnily enough, one of the first times I heard of this being used tangibly was by Chris, when he said that he thought he might have been caught by a speed camera. So he automatically started the mantra, I love you, I love you, I love you, I love you. And whether he was actually caught by the speed camera or not, he didn't get a ticket, you know. So these things can be applied in very many different circumstances. Any questions on that?
No, I've just got a technique that I use, which for me, I'm quite a simple person. And when I was going through a breakdown in my life where I was consumed with negativity and negative thoughts,
Yeah,
the only thing that I could manage was to breathe.
breathing is very, very powerful. Yes. Yeah.
So with that,
Yeah.
I visualized the word breathe in the front of my mind and
Yeah.
purely focused on that as I was breathing,
Yeah.
saying it over and over and over. And
Yeah.
it took a couple of months of pushing away these thoughts
Yeah.
and just
Yeah.
the word breathe. But from being plagued with negative thoughts all my life to having a completely empty mind.
Oh yeah. Yeah. When the sun comes out, it can be extremely challenging, and you can get to a point whereby you're thinking, is this ever going to end?
Yeah.
When it ends, you know about it, and it's just the most beautiful and liberating and amazing experience that you can possibly have.
Incredible. Absolutely incredible. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I'm glad you've brought up the whole breathing side of things. That is another very, very powerful way of doing this, and for me, most poignantly, as I grew up, for the majority of my life, I've been absolutely terrified of public speaking, which I couldn't work out because I love the sound of my own voice. It didn't make any sense at all. But one of the things that one of my professors at university told me, which I ignored for about 10 years, was simply the 3 deep breaths principle. And I think because at that time I was looking for complex. I wanted complex solutions for complex situations. But you hit the nail on the head, Dawn, with keep it simple, you know. And when I started to practice the 3 deep breaths, it eclipsed everything I'd ever done
And this is
before.
it. You know, you're quite right. You know, as humans, we like to complicate it. You know, I'm a simple being, and I can't do flowery stuff or, you know, long-winded explanations of this, that, and the other. Just give it to me straight, because that's how my mind works. So for me, just saying breathe, 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 by God, it works.
No, absolutely. I think it's yeah. So thank you, Dawn. I add to these processes, for example, the 3 deep breaths as well. That's a sort of basic place to start, and very powerful, very effective.
Can I just say that breathing helps to bring you back to the present? Because when you're fearful for the future, that's anxiety. When you're ruminating over the past, that leads to depression. But when you're present, it's a clean slate. That's where the magic happens. That's the power of transformation, because that is where you have the decision where you're going to let your thoughts take you, where you're going to let things go.
No, thank you, Julia. And if I could just add to that from my um, uh, knowledge, it's also important that you utilize your nose for breathing, because we have more intricate sensors between our nose and throat. So it's really very beneficial to breathe in through your nose in order that you activate those sensors between your nose and throat, rather than just breathing through your mouth. So what I'll do is I'll take a deep breath in through my nose and hold for a bit, and then out through my mouth. But yes, thank you. That's been great. Yeah, I move on to the third technique, which I've already alluded to previously. And for me, this is a really powerful one, because, you know, I think it's so easy for us to, and as Dawn has alluded to, and we've spoken about before, it's so easy to forward project negative scenarios into the future, which haven't happened and probably won't happen unless you actually attract them to yourself by making or thinking about it. Like why a hypochondriac is always ill. You know, we tend to attract in, well, we absolutely attract into our lives what we think about. So again, by changing the way you think, or by the way you perceive the future, you can actually change that future for yourself. The mind's an amazingly powerful tool. Right, so we're gonna have a look at the list that you made. Now you don't have to partake, and you don't have to relay your feedback, but it would be really useful for me and for the group if you're able to do that. I think if we just take a few minutes, if you choose one of the methods that we've discussed, and then consciously evoke one of the negative triggers that you have, and feel that negative emotion that it produces. And then when you're feeling that negative, then practice the method you've chosen and see how it makes you feel. Okay, so I'll give you a few minutes. It's now 3:10, so we're not doing too badly for time. Okay, so how are you getting on? Has anyone been able
Yes.
to?
So I've been thinking about my situation, and I think the first technique, the 2 minutes sort of think about and hold it, and don't act upon it. I've been noticing that certain habits or certain actions that I would say I know I shouldn't be doing, I tend to do them like when I'm in the moment, like very quickly. And I think your brain knows that if you didn't do it at that time and give it like pause, it won't happen because you're
Yeah,
powerful enough. And I've noticed that. So when you were saying that, I was quite like I was like, wow, that's exactly what sometimes happens to me. So that was an amazing technique, and I wasn't aware of this. And it's I think my biggest learning from this is to actually hold that thought or the trigger. So yeah, it was very helpful.
no, thank
John,
you.
that
Abdul.
was really good.
Can I go
Thank
next, John?
Yeah,
I desperately try to think of something negative, desperately, and I can't. And
well,
that's the
good for
absolute
you.
truth.
It would seem that your technique, similar to what we were discussing, has been absolutely very powerful, and your testament to it working. So thank you, Dawn.
Absolutely. I was the most negative person going. Everything was negative. But I just sat there thinking of, the past things that would have got me upset. And it's almost like the neurons in my brain are going, no, we're not looking at that. Let's look at something different. That's how it
Absolutely.
felt. Yeah. So
Yeah, for me, they say, oh, I can't unsee that. I can unsee things by removing that memory. So if I see something traumatic on the news or whatever, and I think, well, that's going to affect me, I can remove it and actually unsee it. And this is what you'll be able to do if you take this, what I'm suggesting, to the nth degree.
it works.
So Terry, do you have?
Yeah, I think at the moment I'm trying to deal with too many different things at once, and whereas I understand it might be better to actually take things one at a time, then because of the life situation I'm in, then everything's coming at me. So I need a source of income more than I've got at the moment. That means, in effect, it means starting a new business where we finally managed to get through the divorce after 3 court hearings, which was expensive both in terms of time, money, and emotions, and so on. Which means that we need to sell the family home, which in turn means that I might well be relocating, which then will have an effect on family, my children, and my ability to contact them.
Wow.
It just goes on. So I'm trying to focus on what I can do, which is start the new business. But it's very difficult for me to set aside all the other stuff sufficiently to actually then have enough focus and another thing I don't want to dump everything all on you, but just another thing that I've been dealing with is health issue. So I'm going through I've got an appointment booked with an oncology consultant, and we're probably going to be talking about treatment and so on. So
Wow, Terry, that's a
it's
lot
just
on your plate.
a whole stack of things. So yeah.
I can empathize absolutely, and I think I can relate to having that amount on my plate, and more so recently as I've similarly been establishing a new business and various new businesses and various upheavals. What I've found is that as a result of practicing the techniques that I've practiced, I have very quickly been able to take myself out of that overwhelm and out of the fight or flight and out of the anxiety and trauma and put myself in a position of far greater clarity whereby I can prioritize and I can begin to work with things as I go along without forward
Sure.
projecting any, so absolutely I empathize with your current situation, but I can tell you that personally I've been very, very happy with the results I've got. It doesn't change the situations. The situations are
Yeah.
still there, but I'm
Yeah.
just more able to be more calm about them and work through them one by one.
Yeah, no, that's good. Yeah.
So Terry, I'm more than happy to send you some Reiki.
Thank you.
If
Yeah.
you're open to it, I have to ask.
Yes, it's something I've heard a little bit about, but know nothing about. So I'd be very interested to learn more.
Well, maybe we can have a conversation offline about that.
Jolly good. Thank you. Yeah.
Great. Thanks,
Right.
Tim. Iliad.
Well, I can actually identify with the third method, but there's a twist on that that has worked for me in the past, and that is instead of obviously, as I mentioned earlier, in the scriptures I read that do not be anxious for today, and don't worry about tomorrow because tomorrow will take care of it itself. But often what I look at whenever I'm facing a situation, I do not look at the worst case scenario. I look at how in the past things turned out to be good.
Yes.
And
Perfect.
I look at it from my spiritual journey that the good Lord has taken care of me in the past. I focus on that, and there is no difference today of how he's going to operate in my life. So I need to focus on the goodness that is ahead of me.
Absolutely, really good point, Iliad. And I think it's synonymous with when you're wanting to achieve something that seems out of your reach, to say, well, hang on a minute, he's done it, he's done it, he's done. Why shouldn't I be able to achieve that?
Correct.
And I think that's a very powerful thought. Thank you, Iliad.
I've got a little question, John. Just a quick question.
Yeah.
You mentioned about changing the memory,
Yes.
because it comes from the memory and values and beliefs. I read somewhere, I think it was referred to visualization exercises to change your memory. Is that what you were referring to, or do you have your own techniques when you mentioned about changing memory?
Absolutely. I think one is the what if up technique, because that will replace your negative memory with positive thought. But I'm going to finish soon with the final techniques, which are absolutely visualization. So visualization is so powerful, such a powerful technique. The mind is such a powerful thing. So yeah, thanks, Abdul. Once we've been around the room and everybody's explained what they want to about what we've just done, I'll then finish with the visualization technique. So thank you. So, Tina, how did you get on?
I used the breath and was breathing into the emotions that came up. I know mine. I've done so much inner child healing and coming over childhood traumas. I don't know if you saw it in the comments or not, but when you were talking about it starts in the womb, I was actually beaten inside the womb.
Wow,
And
physically
beaten inside the womb.
Wow, that is, yeah.
Yeah. So I have abandonment issues, and I think that's where I'm most triggered when coming with my son, and letting him deal. And then as far as the positive vocabulary, that's one of the things that I spoke on when I spoke on the stage, next to keynote John C. Maxwell, was overcoming that and listening, acting, listening, believing, and acting accordingly. And the positive affirmations and vocabulary that I've used to rewire my brain. Obviously, I still get triggered, but I live with my husband who has and I love him dearly. He's just such an amazing man. And I'm working with him on releasing the phrase, things like this always happen to me. And after we lost our son the day after Christmas in 2020, I had to admit him into a mental hospital for a week the following July. And it's just, thank goodness I've been on this healing journey with my faith and stuff, since losing my mom in 2017, and was able to help carry him through that, through the grief and through the pain. But with my son, I know it's those old abandonment issues being triggered.
Yeah, no, thank you for sharing, Tina. That's very, very challenging story, and well done to you for picking up the personal development reins and charging full ahead with it. I mean,
Yes.
imagine how different your life would be if you hadn't embraced that and hadn't taken those steps. So yeah, congratulations, and we shall support each other.
Yes, absolutely. That's one of the reasons I named my company small I, capital R, I Rose Healing and Coaching. So
Brilliant.
just be that inspiration and show other people that they can, they can come over those traumas. And I just want to give, my prayers to the gentleman with the cancer, because that's a passion of mine in helping people through that. So.
No, absolutely. And even in your individuality, you can be extremely powerful in doing that. Your
Yes.
intention, your love, it's real, it's tangible, and it reaches those that you need. So
Yes, thank you.
thank you, Tina. I don't think anybody else is able to respond at the moment. I don't think Kevin, as I said, Kara is not feeling very well, and I don't think Kevin or Amy can access their microphones or cameras. So unless there's anybody else who I may have missed, we can move on to the final part of the talk. So yeah, speak now or forever hold your peace and all of that. Right, okay. So I wanted to just look at the difference between energy, negative energy that's coming from within you, and anything that might be coming from outside of you. So many people experience negative energy coming from outside of us. And one of the things I've done for a very long time is to simply engage a force field or enhance my aura for protection. By going through the technique that I'm describing below, I am not only determining where the source of negative energy is coming from, I'm actually removing the negative in that visualization. So what I do is I'll take 3 deep breaths and ask to be connected to the source. Now the source is whatever you hold in your belief system. Mine is God, or a light source, or the light from the central star. It doesn't really matter. It's what matters is that you visualize yourself being bathed and surrounded in golden or silver or brilliant white light, whatever resonates with you best. I then ask my guardian angel to put up a 6-foot barrier around me to protect me from evil. And I visualize myself being surrounded by that light and see that field going up around me. Now, often, as soon as I do that, I will feel myself physically relax immediately. In a similar sense to when I remove negative thoughts that I'll come on to in my next slide. However, if I don't get the immediate sensation of relaxation, then I've learned that it's possible that the energy is actually coming from within me and not actually from an external source. And in fact, I find that many times I talk to people who say they're being attacked or they're being, they have psychic energy against them. What I can see is that it's likely that the negative is actually coming from within themselves and their blockages that they simply can't see because we can't see them. So what I do beyond that is I ask for the negative energy to be expunged from within that force field, and I visualize this happening. So I see myself in my protective bubble, and I see the negative exploding outside of the bubble, and usually that will give me that sense of relaxation and give me that sense of clarity and give me the ability to then think more positively about what it is I'm dealing with. So does anyone have any questions surrounding that process? I'm going to assume not. So that takes me on to the final process that I developed, I think, back in about 2017 as a result of putting together a whole bunch of really, really powerful ideas that I had either read about or been taught or been to a meditation. I think what was the primary inspiration for this for me was a course by Sonia Ricotti, which is called Unsinkable. And Unsinkable for me was a extremely powerful course that I took way back in 2014 when I was going through a really, really, really tough period in my life, perhaps similar to what Terry has described. In fact, almost very similar to what Terry has described. I've taken these ideas from many different places, but so what I do is, and before I go through it, I'll explain that this is a process that I worked out, as I said, in about 2017. And as we've discussed, and I think as Dawn was saying, I had to go through this process. It took me about 2 weeks to remove a very significant trauma and to harmonize my thoughts. And it took me about 2 weeks, and practicing this every night for about 2 weeks and thinking, is this ever going to end? But when it did end, oh my goodness, the sun came out, and I knew I'd stepped into a different and better light for myself. So the full process is I'll take 3 deep breaths and ask to be connected to the source or God. I'll visualize myself being connected to the light and see the energy pouring in and out of me through connection to the universe. I'll visualize myself on a boat approaching a beautiful and deserted tropical beach, greeted by smiling, loving, and happy native people. I'll see myself disembark and walk up the beach to a beautiful jewel-encrusted marble arch and hallway. I'll pass through that hallway, admiring the marble, admiring the jewels, and into the forest and up an hill to a rainbow bridge, carrying the load that I want to expunge from my mind. Now, sometimes this is specific. I know what it is I'm dealing with. Sometimes I'm not really sure what's bothering me or what's getting to me, but either way, the technique always works for me. Something my sister added to this, she's a light worker, was to take 2 steps down and then 3 steps up to the bridge, which can be significant. And then when I'm standing on the bridge, I can look down and see over the side and see the valley, and to see the river passing and fading away in the distance to the beach shore at the bottom. I look down on the side and I consciously throw my trash over the side, and I watch it disappear into that abyss. And this is a very common technique practiced in many spiritual practices. And what I find is when I throw that load, and it doesn't matter what you visualize, sometimes I use a rucksack or a rock or anything, or if I'm working with a specific person, I have a problem with a relationship, then I'll take that person and I'll throw them over the side, but I'll wave them goodbye with love. I'll make peace with them, and they'll wave back to me, and that's a very powerful thing, particularly if you invoke forgiveness, and not for yourself, not for them, but for yourself. So you forgive that person for you and for the relationship which you have with them, for example. So always and without fail, I feel myself physically relax immediately after I've thrown that garbage over the bridge, and I can continue to throw trash, and I will often, having expanded on that, I could pack everything into a rocket and blast it into space, or it's really a personal technique that you can make up as a visualization in your mind for doing this. I find that although the thoughts that were causing me to feel bad have simply evaporated and disappeared, that I can then maintain that state of calmness, and I can think constructively and effectively about what I need to consider and the challenge that I have, without the burden of fear or anxiety or confusion or any negative bias. Now, in order to then replenish that memory with a positive affirmation, I will then visualize a fountain on the bridge, so coming down behind the bridge, but a fountain of light where I drink from that light, and I imagine the positive benefits or beliefs that I'm affirming to myself to replace the negative that I've just released. So, if it's specific, then, if I've released a person, then I will bring them back into my life if I want to, in that fountain of light, and visualize myself hugging or shaking hands or whatever you want to see yourself doing. If not, if you don't know, then I simply just drink from the light and allow myself a moment of mindlessness in order to absorb whatever it is my body needs at that time. So yeah, I mean, that, as I said, that's the longer process that I take. And where I got to very quickly, I mean, that may seem a little convoluted and a little, I don't actually have 5 minutes of my day or 10 minutes of my day every time this happens. What I found was that pretty quickly I was able to put myself in a position whereby if I had a challenge or thought or negative come up, I could immediately go to that bridge and throw the trash off immediately, and I would immediately relax. But I felt that I found, like Dawn has explained, that I did actually have to go through this process for a particular and larger trauma in order to put myself in a position whereby I had the confidence and ability to do that immediately. But as I said, with practice, I'm sure that you will be able to, if you want to work with this, then you'll be able to put yourself in a position whereby you too can simply remove the negative and function in a more positive sense in your life. So any questions at that point. This is the book that I'm talking about. All of my references and everything, and also copies of the meditations and the visualizations and everything are in my book. And I would encourage you, if you haven't got one, to get yourself a copy. I've sorted out an issue that I had with Amazon recently, so it's now readily available. Yeah, so you know, thank you very much. It's been a pleasure, and thank you so much for your engagement and your participation in this. It's been an absolute pleasure, and I think we've all learned something great from the experience. But tell me, do you have any feedback?
Me?
Could you put your book reference up on the screen again, please, John?
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, thanks.
So I'd like to say something. I've already got your book, by the way.
No, thank you.
So with all of these techniques that you've spoken of, John, it's about consistency, isn't it?
Yes,
Doing it, not
yes,
just for a day or 2 days or 3 days, but consistently doing it until they go, and they do go.
yeah. Thank you, Dawn. Yes,
Without a fail, they go.
yeah.
It's being consistent all the time doing it until it's gone.
Thank you, Dawn. Yes, I'm so glad you. I'm so glad you came to provide that input, because, I think it is important that you understand that even if it doesn't seem like it's working to begin with, once you get through the process, because what you're doing is you're removing all of the layers of negative until you can get to the primary root cause. So thank you for that.
Thank you. It was a lovely afternoon, John.
I'm so
Apologies
glad you
for
enjoyed it.
me and my sister gossiping at the very beginning of it, but it was
Yeah,
lovely.
no
Thank you.
worries. No, it's been a pleasure.
John, it was amazing. Sorry for the background noise. I'm in a cafe, but a very thoughtful insight, much detailed. I've really learned a lot. And I've already got your book.
Yes,
So
thank you.
yes, it's been a pleasure. Thank you so much for your time and sharing everything you shared with us today.
Thank you, Abdul. It's been a pleasure. Thanks for joining us.
Yeah, thank you very much, John. Really appreciate it. So, yeah.
We'll keep in touch, Terry. I'll
Yes, please. Yeah.
I'll message
Yeah.
you outside later on, maybe later on today or tomorrow, but I'll certainly send you a word.
Yeah, that would be great. Thank you. Yes, I'll look out for that.
Yeah. No, thank you, Terry. Appreciate it.
Great.
Thanks, John. Thanks, John. Thank you for bringing your words on the page to life by discussing it and sharing your knowledge with us in real time. That's been really insightful. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Julia. It's been a pleasure, and for me, it's really the fruition of something I've been an ambition I've had for a very, very, very long time. This session itself. So I thank everyone for joining me and for helping me to learn what I'm doing and give me some confidence that I'm not talking bollocks, which is great.
Yeah, thank you for sharing your pearls of wisdom. It's been a real pleasure. Thank you.
Mm.
You're definitely not talking bollocks, by the way.
No, thank you. It's my sense of humor. Thank you.
Love it. Simple.
Mm.
Thank you, John. I'm going to get going, and thank you to
Yeah.
everybody as well. It's a pleasure to
Okay.
meet.
Thanks, Dawn.
Take
Thanks so
care.
much.
Bye.
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 I think
You
I'm going to stop the recording now.